There are moments when the world around you is loud. Relentless traffic, flashing screens, voices talking over each other. But beneath all of it, there's a stillness that stops you in your tracks. Not the kind that soothes, but the kind that stings. A quiet that feels like it's been buried for years, untouched, forgotten. It rises not from the noise outside, but from the very bones of your being. And when it speaks, it doesn't ask for attention. It demands it. Have you heard it? That inner murmur that cuts deeper than any shout, asking, not softly, but with aching insistence, what are you doing with your life? It's not the voice of fear or pressure. It's not a to-do list. It's not your boss, your parents, or society laying out their expectations. It's something older than all of that. Wiser. It's the echo of the self you abandoned when you started chasing applause instead of truth. We spend so much time performing, wearing masks, trying to be what the world finds acceptable. We adjust ourselves like broken tools, trying to fit into places we were never meant to be. Piece by piece, we drift away from the person we once knew. And one day, you wake up feeling like a stranger in your own skin. There's no fire in your eyes, just a dull ache behind them. Everything seems okay on the surface, but you know something's missing. Something vital. Carl Jung called it the soul, the deepest part of who you are. And what's terrifying is how easily we lose it. Not in one dramatic moment, but through a quiet, consistent betrayal. Every time you bite your tongue to be polite. Every time you bury your truth so someone else can stay comfortable. Every time you avoid silence because you're scared of what you might hear. That's how the soul begins to fade. You go through the motions, smiling when you want to scream, agreeing when your heart says no. And deep down, something inside you begins to whisper, then beg, and eventually roar. Because it never really dies. It waits. Through all your performances, through every carefully curated version of yourself, it waits. For the day you finally stop pretending, for the day you turn around and come home to yourself. This isn't about comfort. It's about confrontation. It's about looking at your reflection and realizing you've built a life on everything but truth. You become an expert at survival, but a stranger to your own desires. Your soul wasn't made for convenience. It was made for meaning. And no matter how deep you've buried it, it wants to rise. There comes a time when you can no longer afford to avoid yourself. No more running, no more hiding behind noise, behind others' expectations, behind the illusion of success. That time is now. Because the longer you deny who you are, the more you'll suffer in silence. Not from lack of things, but from lack of self. Jung spoke of individuation, the sacred act of becoming whole again, reclaiming the parts of you that were lost, shamed, ignored. It's not a straight path. It's messy. It demands your courage. But it's the only path that leads to freedom, the real kind, the kind where your inner world matches the face you show the world. No more masks, no more pretending. Stop asking who you need to be for them. Ask instead, who are you when no one's watching? What does your spirit crave when it's no longer silenced by shame or fear? Look closely at your habits, at your relationships, at the stories you tell yourself every day just to keep going. Do they reflect the truth of your soul, or just the persona you've created to feel safe? Because life, real life, is not found in safety. It's found in alignment. And that starts with answering the call. The one that's been whispering to you in the quiet moments, not to change everything overnight, but to finally begin. There's a version of you the world sees, polished, agreeable, well put together. It knows how to smile on cue, how to say the right thing, how to make others comfortable. It's the face you've learned to wear so you can be accepted, appreciated, and applauded. And for a while it works. You fit in. You're liked. But deep down you know the truth. It's not really you. You've said yes when every cell in your body screamed no. You've smiled through moments when your heart was quietly breaking. You've played strong while something inside you is barely holding on. You wear the mask so often, so convincingly, that you start to believe it's who you are. But the mask was never meant to be a home. It was only ever a shield. And the moment you mistake it for your identity, you begin to disappear. It happens slowly. You make little compromises. You silence your truth in small, forgettable ways. You trade authenticity for approval. And soon, you're not living. You're performing. Living out a story that isn't yours. Reciting lines you never wrote. You become a character in someone else's script, and no matter how convincing the performance, your soul knows. It always knows. The soul doesn't forget who you are. It doesn't care about how successful you look or how well you played the part. It waits, watching quietly from beneath the surface, carrying the weight of every moment you abandoned yourself, Every time you said what was expected instead of what was true. Every time you stayed when you should have walked away. That silent betrayal builds up. It becomes tension in your chest, unrest in your thoughts. A heavy kind of sorrow you can't explain. You don't lose yourself all at once. You vanish in pieces. A nod here. A fake laugh there. A swallowed truth. A forced smile. And over time, those small losses collect into something massive. A life that looks full but feels hollow. A success story that doesn't feel like yours. But what if, even for a moment, you let the mask slip? What if you let yourself be seen? Raw, flawed, unfiltered. Who would you be without the roles, the expectations, the endless performing? It's not a comfortable question. Real self-examination never is. Jung never promised it would be easy. He spoke of the descent, the deep dive into the forgotten corners of your psyche, the parts you've hidden not just from the world, but from yourself. And yet, that descent is where the healing begins, not in light, but in shadow, not in escaping the pain, but in understanding it, because within that darkness is the part of you you've disowned, the part that carries your unmet needs, your unspoken truths, your unfelt grief. That shadow is not your enemy. It's the version of you that survived, that adapted, that did what it had to do when you didn't know better. But now, you do. Real power isn't found in pretending to have it all together. It's found in the quiet, grounded strength that comes from facing yourself, fully and without flinching. It's not about dominating anyone else. It's about no longer being dominated by your own denial. That kind of power doesn't roar. It doesn't seek validation. It simply radiates because it's rooted in truth. And you carry that truth already. You don't need to go find it somewhere else. You just need to stop running from it. The patterns in your life aren't random. The cycles you repeat aren't a curse. They are clues, signals from the unconscious parts of you still longing to be heard. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And most people never pause long enough to understand what that really means. It means your unhealed wounds are writing your story. It means your hidden pain is shaping your choices. It means you're not cursed. You're just unaware. But awareness is a doorway. And once you walk through it, you can no longer pretend not to know. The question is, will you walk through? Will you stop numbing, stop pretending, stop surviving, and begin living from a place of wholeness? Healing doesn't happen on the surface. It happens when you decide to finally sit with what you've been avoiding, when you stop asking the world who you are, and start remembering for yourself. It starts in the places you've spent your whole life avoiding, the quiet corridors of your inner world, where you've locked away everything too raw, too wild, too painful to face. You tell yourself it's gone, forgotten, buried. But nothing you suppress ever truly disappears. It waits. Beneath the surface of your daily life, beneath the smile you wear, beneath the roles you perform, it waits. The shadow isn't evil, it's not your enemy. It's every part of you that was silenced just to survive. The instincts you tamed, the rage you swallowed, the grief you never let yourself cry, the tenderness that felt too dangerous to show, the hunger for love you pretended you didn't need. These aren't flaws, they're fragments. Exiled pieces of your wholeness aching to come home. And the more you ignore them, the louder they become. Not with words, but with consequences. In your relationships. In the decisions you regret but keep repeating. In the quiet numbness that creeps in even when life looks fine. You tell yourself you're independent, confident, driven, but underneath something is screaming to be seen. Not judged, not fixed, just finally acknowledged. And there's a version of you that never got to be. Not because it wasn't real, but because it wasn't allowed. You learned to survive by becoming what was safe, what was acceptable. But survival isn't the same as living. And now that hidden self is stirring, asking, begging to be felt, to be loved, to be made whole. The journey back to that self is not linear. It spirals. It winds through discomfort, through forgotten memories, through truth you weren't ready to admit. It breaks you in places that never fully healed, and it frees you in ways you didn't think were possible. Because in the pain you buried, there is power. In the wounds you denied, there is wisdom. You cannot reclaim your life if you're still hiding from yourself. You cannot build real connection if you keep projecting your pain onto others. Until you face your own darkness, peace will remain just out of reach. This path isn't for those who want to stay numb. It's for the ones who are tired of pretending, tired of living half-lives, tired of waiting for something outside them to fix what's been broken inside. And maybe that's you. Maybe some part of you is done running. You may not have the answers. You may not know what healing looks like. But the fact that you're still listening, that something in you hasn't given up, is proof that your soul's ready. You're not too late. You've never been too broken. You're simply at the threshold. The shadow isn't the end. It's the beginning. The doorway to everything real, everything honest, everything that matters. And only those who walk through it will understand what it means to live freely, not perform, not please. Live. You keep looking out at the world, thinking you see it clearly. You judge, admire, condemn, praise. But what you see outside is only a reflection of what you carry inside. Every person you meet, every emotion they spark in you, that's your mirror, your soul speaking in symbols, hoping you'll listen. You don't get angry at strangers without reason. You don't envy someone for no cause. You don't instantly love or hate without something deeper at play. Those moments are messages, unconscious truths rising to the surface. Jung said it clearly. What we deny in ourselves, we project onto others. The parts of you you've rejected show up in the people who trigger you. The parts you've forgotten show up in those you idolize. That person who annoys you might be holding a mirror to something you can't yet accept in yourself. That person you admire could be reflecting a strength in you that you've been too afraid to claim. Every encounter is an invitation to look inward. Not everyone is meant to stay, but everyone shows you something, if you're willing to see it. But projection is a trap too. It blurs your vision. It keeps you from seeing others as they truly are. Instead, you see your wounds, your unmet needs, your fears. You turn people into bandages for pain they didn't cause. That's how we end up in toxic cycles. That's how we keep repeating the same heartbreak, calling it fate. No one can rescue you from what you won't face. No one can carry the weight of what you haven't owned. Healing begins when you stop pointing outward and start turning inward. When you take back every piece of yourself you've given away in fear, in shame, in need. And when you do, slowly, bravely, you start to clear the mirror. Not all at once, but one reflection at a time. And when you finally begin to see clearly, it won't be through the lens of judgment or scarcity, but from a place of deep understanding. Not through the ache of what's missing, but through the quiet fullness of knowing yourself. Because everything you experience, every feeling, every reaction, every connection, is not just happening to you. It's speaking from within you. Life isn't separate from you. It reflects you, responds to you, reveals you. Each moment is your soul in a conversation with the world. And in the real path, the one that actually leads somewhere, has always been inward. So the next time someone triggers you, lights a fire inside you, or pulls something unexplainable to the surface, don't rush to react. Be still. Watch. Ask yourself, what part of me is being shown in this mirror? Because the soul doesn't shout. It whispers. And it's always speaking, especially when you're finally quiet enough to listen. There was a time you didn't need words to know who you were. You didn't need roles or titles. You just existed. Wild, open, whole. As a child, you believed in magic without needing proof. You dreamed boldly with no fear of being wrong. You heard the wind as a voice, felt time stretch and disappear. But slowly the world taught you to forget, taught you to trade wonder for practicality, feeling for control, truth for approval. You were told to grow up, to stop being sensitive, to stop imagining, stop dreaming, stop believing in anything that couldn't be measured or explained. And so, you did. You adapted. You made yourself small where you were meant to expand. But the soul never forgets who you are. When silenced, it speaks in symbols, in fragments, in dreams. Carl Jung believed dreams are not nonsense. They're messages from your deeper self. Not random, not meaningless, but coded expressions of everything your conscious mind refuses to face. When you dream of falling, of being exposed, of fire, animals, or darkness, it's not just imagery. It's your soul trying to communicate in the only language it has left. And if you learn to listen, you might remember what your waking self has forgotten. To dream isn't to run from life, it's to return to it. It's to reconnect with the archetypes inside you, the child, the rebel, the healer, the wanderer. They've been waiting patiently within you, waiting for you to come back. You don't need to travel the world to find yourself. You only need to be still enough to feel. But stillness is not what the world teaches. It teaches speed, image, achievement. It rewards those who never pause, who never question. Who has time to dream when the clock never stops ticking? Who dares to listen to the soul when silence is seen as laziness? Only those who are truly alive. Only those who are done living on autopilot. Because real peace isn't found in noise. It's found in remembering. Remembering what matters, who you were before the world told you who to be. Your dreams aren't distractions. They are beacons, signals in the dark. Reminders that your soul's still here, still speaking, still alive. And when you finally give them space, something inside you begins to shift, not loudly, but deeply. Healing doesn't always roar. Sometimes it comes as a whisper in the night. Most people live on the edges of themselves, chasing someone else's idea of success, love, happiness. But there's a quiet voice buried beneath the noise that keeps calling you back to your center, back to truth. That voice is the beginning of the journey Jung called individuation, the sacred process of becoming whole. It's not trendy self-help. It's ancient, it's real, and it demands everything from you, not to make you perfect, but to make you whole. Individuation doesn't ask you to shine brighter than anyone else. It asks you to stop running from your shadows, to integrate the parts you've been taught to reject. It asks you to feel, to question, to break open. To be an individual in Jung's vision isn't to stand apart from the world. It's to no longer be divided within yourself. It's to stop tearing yourself in half just to be accepted. But becoming whole requires fire. It requires letting go of who you've pretended to be, of the masks, the roles, the tidy stories that no longer fit. It's death and rebirth, the death of illusion and the birth of truth. Not a truth someone else hands you, but one you carve out through courage. It's no longer living to be liked. It's living to be real. To no longer obeying without thought. It's learning to listen to the quiet voice within that's been right all along. But there's no map for this journey, no manual, no quick fix. Every soul walks its own terrain. What saves one may wound another. That's why the most radical act is to stop copying and begin discovering. Individuation isn't a final destination. It's not a peak you conquer. It's a process, a living, breathing dialogue between what you know and what you've yet to meet within yourself. And that process is the path home. And with every breath, every breakdown, every piece of your former self that falls away, you draw closer to that quiet center within, the one place that's never lied to you, that deep silence where the truth doesn't have to scream to be heard. You've already stepped onto the path, even if you don't know where it leads. You've already said yes, even if fear still lingers. And that matters more than you think. You may feel lost at times, disoriented in the chaos of it all, but your soul hasn't forgotten the way. It's been guiding you all along, and not through certainty, but through ache, through longing, through the persistent pull towards something real. Trust that. Trust the discomfort. Trust the questions that won't go away. They're not here to break you, they're here to awaken you. In a world overflowing with noise, constant motion, endless chatter, 1,000 voices demanding your attention, it's no wonder the soul retreats. It doesn't compete with chaos. It waits, silently, and yet, beneath all that noise, there is still a sacred place within you, untouched, undamaged, unburdened, this space where you don't have to perform and don't have to fix, don't have to be anyone at all. That space is silence. Not the silence that feels empty, but the one that feels alive. Jung understood silence as a threshold, a place where the unconscious finally begins to speak, not through logic, but through image, through presence, through intuition. And the only way to hear it is to stop. When was the last time you just sat still? Not thinking, not striving, not distracting. When was the last time you let silence stretch long enough to feel uncomfortable? To feel everything that noise has been keeping at bay? We run from it, fill it, deny it, because silence doesn't let us hide. It confronts us with the truth that we've been living too far from ourselves. But in that confrontation, there is grace. Silence strips you down to what is real. It shows you that you don't need more to be whole. You just need less. Less pretending, less running, less trying to meet the impossible expectations of a world addicted to appearances. And if you stay long enough in that stillness, if you don't flinch, you'll begin to hear a voice you forgot you had. Your soul, patient, ancient, steady, the one that's always known who you are, even when you didn't. And from that place, everything begins to shift. Not because the world changes, but because you do. You remember that you're not here to perform, you're here to be. And when you become someone who can sit with themselves without distraction, without denial, no one can manipulate you. No one can sell you illusions. That's the beginning of true freedom, But don't mistake freedom for ease. The path to awakening is filled with pain, not because you're failing, but because something false is dying. Pain is not punishment. It's a teacher, a portal, a sacred force that shatters the illusions you built to survive. And in its wake, it offers something pure, truth. Jung knew that transformation is not a soft unfolding. It's a rupture, a death of the person you thought you had to be, the loss of what once felt safe but was always too small. But in that loss is the seed of something vast, something fierce, something holy. You felt it in the moments when everything crumbled, when the relationship ended, when the plan failed, when you were left staring into the dark with nothing to hold on to. And yet, you didn't disappear. Something within you rose. That's the soul speaking through your pain, not to destroy, but to rebuild. Pain can either close you or crack you open. You get to choose. Stay stuck in the story or step into the fire and become more than you were. And no, the wound won't disappear. But it will stop controlling you. It will stop being your cage. It becomes your doorway, the place where your depth begins, your wisdom, your power. Most want change without the unraveling. They want peace without disruption. But that's not how the soul works. The soul is forged in fire, not comfort. It's shaped by everything you dared to feel, everything you stayed present with, everything you didn't turn away from. And that's why you're here, not just to survive this life, but to be transformed by it, from the inside out. There comes a moment when the soul wakes up, not because everything is finally perfect, but because it can no longer bear to stay asleep. It happens in the ruins, in the aftermath, and in the quiet moments when all the masks have cracked and the roles you played no longer fit. You don't rise because of pride. You rise because something in you remembers who you were before the world told you to forget. Pain doesn't automatically make you grow, but when you face it with open eyes and an open heart, it becomes something sacred, a fire that doesn't just burn, it purifies. And that's when the shift begins, not on the outside, but in that hidden place within, where your soul has been whispering, "Come back." You've never truly lost yourself. The parts you thought were gone were only waiting for you to stop running, to stop performing, to stop pretending. The soul doesn't abandon. It retreats. It folds in like a flower at night, patient, quiet, alive. All this time it's been watching, waiting for you to remember the sound of your own voice. Jung understood this deeply, that every descent into darkness was a call to recover the soul, the parts of you that were left behind each time you chose approval over authenticity, the truth you silenced just to be safe. But safety is a cage when it costs you yourself, and you feel it, in the emptiness, in the ache, in the quiet desperation of living a life that looks full but feels hollow. Returning to the soul isn't poetic, it's essential. It's the difference between living on autopilot and actually being here, being alive. It's not found in achievement, but in alignment. It's not about becoming something more, but shedding everything that isn't true. You don't have to figure it all out. You only have to begin with honesty, with courage, with the tiniest act of truth. Speak when you want to hide. Rest when you want to escape. Cry when your body asks for release. Let the real you emerge, even if it shakes, even if it's messy. That's how you call your soul back, by showing it that you're finally willing to live as your whole self. It won't be clean. It won't be easy. You'll doubt. You'll stumble. But something within you is changing. You're remembering. The light in your eyes. The softness in your heart. The way you used to feel the world before you were taught to fear it. The you that never needed to be earned, only embraced. You don't have to impress anyone anymore. You just have to be real. To show up in your own skin and say, "This is me. This is where I begin." And when you live from that place, everything changes. Not all at once, not with fireworks, but with quiet conviction, with presence, with truth. You've reached the edge of an old story. But this isn't the end. It's the threshold. The closing of the chapter where you forgot yourself, and the beginning of something sacred. The life that begins when you stop pretending, when you stop betraying your own heart just to belong. You've walked through things most people never dare to face. You've stood in the fire and felt what it means to lose and still choose love. You've heard the voice within, the one that doesn't care about appearances, only truth. Jung never gave easy answers. He offered mirrors, symbols, questions. Because that's what the soul understands. Not logic, but presence. And now, here you are, awake, wounded, whole. You don't have to be perfect, you only have to stay. Stay with yourself through the storm. Stay through the silence. Stay when the old ways call you back. Stay even when it's hard. Because the soul doesn't ask for victory. It asks for truth. And the truth is, you are more than your mistakes, more than your masks, more than your fear. You're the one who can begin again. Not from shame, but from clarity. You can choose to stop living someone else's version of your life. You can come home to yourself. Maybe no one else will notice. Maybe nothing around you will change. But you will. And when you change the way you see, you change everything you touch. If you feel that quiet pulse, that subtle inner shift, the kind you can't explain but can't ignore, don't turn away. That's your soul returning. That's your beginning, not in noise, not in rush, but in the stillness that says, I'm here, I'm ready. Breathe from that place. Live from that place. Because this life, this fleeting, sacred, unrepeatable life, isn't meant to be watched from the outside. It's meant to be lived from the soul. And if something stirred in you, even for a moment, if you paused, breathed, felt the ache and the hope at once, then don't stop now. Keep walking. There's more to find, more to reclaim. And if you're ready, say it now, even in a whisper. I am ready to be reborn.